attendees are muted and off camera. If you have questions during the presentation, just use the Q&A function down at the bottom of your screen. But then after Tony is finished, everyone will be able to talk and ask questions on your own. So don't worry about that. But if you have something during the presentation, just put it in the Q&A. And Tony is a relatively recent village member and has an interesting topic to talk about. So Tony, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. And I have asked Chuck to break in and ask me questions along the way that come up because I will can get a little lost when I'm just staring at a screen and um, remembering what I meant to convey by a given slide. So we'll see how this goes. Anyway, I'm with the National Institute for Play, which is a nonprofit public benefit entity with the mission of advancing society's understanding and application of play. Play is a relatively unknown in society, but science has learned a great deal about the biological basis of play. And one of the things we like to compare play to sleep. 50 years ago, sleep research was very um, uh, it was at its early stages. Today, there's uh, there are 10,000 sleep centers around the country. There are over 20,000 physicians who are specialists in sleep, and uh, most of that is dedicated to helping people not become sleep deprived. And one of the things we want to do is to make sure that people are not play deprived. So that will be part of what I guess that'll be the implicit message for what I'll be talking about today. Let me switch to my slides,
Tony,
which
how long has
is
that
going to be.
institute been around?
Dr. Stuart Brown founded the institute in 1994.
Oh, okay, pretty recent.
Um, Pretty recent. It's having a growth spurt now with the web as a means of communicating more cost effectively. Um, and Dr. Brown is actually is now 90 years old and has been studying play since the late 60s and early 70s. Um, I could talk a little bit more about that. Maybe I would. Oh, let me just say some more about Dr. Brown.
Yeah.
He um, he first got introduced to the concept of play um, by being part of a commission in 1966. A 25-year-old student at the University of Texas Austin went up to the Texas, what they call the tower, and shot 14 people and injured 30, killed 14 people and injured 31. Some of you might remember that. It made the cover of Time magazine, Life magazine. It was probably the first major mass murder in the U.S. And the governor of Texas wanted to know why. Why? What would make a young man who seems so likable and sociable do that? And they formed a commission. Stewart was on the commission. At that point, he was a young professor of psychiatry at Baylor, and one of the major findings uh, in that the commission had that they found, and they went back 3 generations. They talked to the guy's name was Charles Whitman. They talked to Charles's parents. Charles's They went to the town where Charles's parents grew up. They talked to Charles's teachers. They got a very full story about Charles, and it turns out that he was totally play deprived as a kid. His father was very overbearing, very controlling, and and as a kid, he never had the opportunity to have free play, to do what he wanted to do, to run around and play with other kids. He was at the time he was the youngest Eagle Scout in the country, but he didn't get any enjoyment out of all of the various merit badges of, building the little cars or creating campfires or whatever all of the merit badges are. Um, his father was, just hovering over him over to get all of those things done. And he built up a great deal of repressed feelings and just was never able to play. And play, you'll hear as I talk about this in more depth, um, is all about reducing stress, increasing joy, and creativity. So let me dive into the slides.
Great. Thank you. That was
Let's see.
fascinating background on that. I never would have expected that.
Yeah, it was definitely a surprising outcome. Okay, here's that. Um, so what nature wants you to know about play is it's part of your biology. Just like sleep is part of our biology, play is part of our biology too, and I'll get into that in a little more in some depth. Uh, and there are three things I'd like you to remember from this talk. I'm going to talk a lot about all of this, but basically, these are three things that would be good for you to remember. I think a lot of us think that the opposite of play is work, and that's absolutely not true. The opposite of play is depression. In fact, work can be play, and those of us who are the most lucky are we're most lucky if our work is playful for us. Stewart's interviewed a lot of Nobel laureates, and while some of them are grind through their work, most of them can't differentiate between work and play. They love what they do, and that leads to their innovativeness, their creativity, and the enormous energy that they put into their work. Play produces well-being. It's kind of a vaccine against stress, creates resilience. If you've had a lot of laughter, or if you have a lot of laughter in your life, situations where you're having fun and laughing and feeling light, that creates resilience for stressful situations. You feel strong. You're not as brought down by stressful situations. And play is critical for children. If children don't play, there are a lot of negative consequences, and I'll talk about some of them. Well, one of them was in that story of Charles Whitman. So play is instinctual. It's something you're drawn to. So, you have a puppy, and how many people, many people will just, kneel down and pet the puppy, play with the puppy. It's, it's just something you're drawn to. Now, you could also have a sense of, I'd like to go play with that puppy, but you hold yourself back. And that's, you're repressing or suppressing that play urge. Um, when you've got a dog with a wagging tail that wants to play with you, if you've got, if you're not um, uh, in fear of the dog, or if you're not worried about work, if that's not overbearing, so if there's nothing that's overbearing on you, you'll play with the dog. And if you do play with the dog, then maybe your work would become a little less overbearing. Um, Play can be social. You do it. A lot of play is social with other people. One of the leading researchers of play says that play is social joy, but it doesn't have to be social. It can be solitary. The lady on the left is very content. She's feeling a good deal of satisfaction from what she's doing, a sense of completion by, whether she's gotten, X number of rows done or she's actually completed the piece. The woman on the right has, just had a good workout, and she's feeling the endorphins from that. These are all play situations. They don't look like play. I mean, typically, again, you think mostly when you think of play, you think of kids, and you're going to see a lot of examples here of what is play. Hold on, let me grab some notes here. Okay. Um, so in all of these situations, certainly here and here, their mood is lifted. They're feeling satisfaction. They're feeling lighter, and to some extent, joy. These people are probably closer to joy than these people are, but it's a spectrum. There's research happening in a large number, in a broad range of areas. Um, it play research is happening in a broad range of areas. In neuroscience, which is the newest study area of study, uh, it's neuroscience is showing where in the brain play happens, what happens to the brain when you play, and particularly when you don't play. Psychology has defined and is defining characteristics of play. What is feeling playful like? They a lot of psychologists say that playfulness is a personality trait, um, and it's definitely a positive personality trait. Um, Education research is about how children learn, and it's very clear that children learn better in playful environments. They The worst environment for learning is our classic education environment, a didactic environment where you've got the teacher up front and the kids are at their desk and they're supposed to pay attention. That is the least productive, the least effective way of learning. The much more effective is for kids to be working with each other and to have playful activities around learning. And finally, ethology. Ethology is actually the oldest version of play research, and that's the study of animal play. And in fact, animal play is an accepted discipline. Or it's a large discipline in academia, uh, and it's ironic or sad that human play is not yet an academic discipline. And in fact, one of the reasons that play is not so well known is because play takes place across all of these different disciplines. The research takes place across all of these disciplines without without a lot of intermixing. And one of the missions of the institute is to bring together and publish in a way that everybody can understand the findings across all of this research. Oops, let me get okay. What are some characteristics of play? First of all, it's something you choose. You want to do it. You're drawn into it. Like the example of the puppy, you're just naturally attracted to it. We say you're intrinsically motivated. So motivation is what drives you to do something, and if that motivation comes from inside you, then you want to do it, and you're gonna do it. You want to do it over and over. Uh, Children, well, I'll get into this later. Children are something I'll get into later is that children are natural at this because they don't have the filters yet to suppress or filter out those playful urges. When you're playing, you're engaged, you're not self conscious. So, playing with the puppy or playing your guitar or dancing, you're not thinking about um, the dinner you need to cook tonight or the work you've got to do tomorrow. You're just fully engaged and not self-conscious. And finally, you feel uplifted. Your mood lifts. It's kind of the opposite of depression. Playfulness is the opposite of depression. You can feel satisfied at the high end of the spectrum. You feel joy, and joy is a great place to be. Here's here's how play works. There's a stimulus in the environment. So in this case, just being in nature can be a stimulus. But this woman sitting at the edge of the water, her feet are feeling vibrant from the water, and that triggers play circuits in her brain. and those play circuits then propagate throughout through other parts of the brain and yield a playful behavior, which in this case is, splashing some water. She's having fun. It's a very light period or experience for her. And we call this a state of play. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but it you need to understand. Well. We really want you to understand that play is in our brains, and it's in a very old area of the brain. The brain stem and here up to the pons is those are the very earliest parts of the brain. We call that the reptilian brain. And then above that are some of the emotional areas of the brain. And above that is the cortex, which is what makes us human, right? We have the largest cortex of any mammal, of any other animal. And it's the size and capabilities of this cortex that make us human. But when we're born, that cortex is not wired. The neurons are there, the wires are there, but they're not connected. And we're driven mostly by what's down here, right? So in the brain stem in the pons, you've got the basic functions like breathing, um, heart heart rate, respiratory functions, where your attention goes, um, balance, the ability to stay in balance and keep moving forward. So these are ancient areas of the whoops. There's ancient areas of the brain. Can you see the when I do the cursor?
Yep.
Does that show up? Great. Um, and so when air, and then above that is starts to be the emotional areas of the brain. And so when something is triggered here, like I was saying in this example, the environmental stimulus is the water, the the sun, the nature, and that triggers that woman's play circuits here, which then propagate up and create signals all over the brain, which creates the behavior that manifests from her being in that environment. And and it every person is unique. So what triggers your play circuits is can be very different from one person to another. Somebody else sitting on that water's edge might not feel playful at all. They might feel dirty and not liking the fact that their feet are wet. So it's very it varies with the person. But one of the key messages here is that play begins way down here in the bottom of the brain, and then it propagates up. And one of the reasons that play is so important to humans, and particularly to kids, is because it does propagate up. And for kids, it really helps a lot of the programming that goes on up here in the cortex. So what are the benefits of play? It builds brains. There's a lot of research that shows that, and this is not on humans. This is with small mammals, shows that uh, animals that are allowed to play socially and with toys, with other objects, their brains get bigger. And uh, and the same animals, if they're deprived of play, no toys, no friends, their brains shrink. Um, the uh, the more the more these mammals play, the more resilience they have. They can stand up to tougher conditions for longer. Um, it enhances executive function and self-regulation. That's about being able to understand what's going on in a situation and not react to it, but put the pieces together and figure out what's the best path through it. So play does helps with all of these things, sharpens your social skills, makes you more gregarious, makes it easier to talk to people. And play is critical to learning. Critical to learning. Think about the one of the phrases I like is, when somebody asks you to figure something out, like, I can't see if I can do this. Here's somebody gives me a remote or has a remote and they don't know how to use it. So I'll say, well, let me play with it and I'll figure it out. So, you're learning when you're playing with something. And for kids, as I said earlier, play is central. And unfortunately, our current the way that we teach kids, or with the classic didactic environment with a teacher, is is a very ineffective way. All right, I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures of people playing that you might not think of. Now, if we go back to that model of that I was talking about here, where you have an environmental stimulus, it triggers your play circuits, and it yields a playful behavior. So here, the environmental stimulus is probably that there's some song playing that is important to you, or something that was important in your past, and and there's a partner who wants to do it. So you're getting enticed to play. It's very easy in this situation to suppress it and say, "No, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to. That would be embarrassing," and that's suppressing play. But if you just go with it, you're going to feel better. This guy is feeling a great deal of satisfaction by playing the drums. He's totally into it. He's not thinking about what's he's in his garage playing the drums, and he's not thinking about the fact that when he goes into the house, he's got to do laundry. Right? He's just totally engaged. This is play. This is social play. This is connecting with an old friend. Brings huge joy, and it's connected to your play circuits. Wire nice. There we go. More social play. Um, it's it's joyful, and you'll notice that I haven't really shown any pictures of kids. And play is usually when somebody says play, you think it's a kids. Well, play is throughout your life. I'll show you some pictures of kids, and we'll talk about that in a little while here. But it's very much needed throughout life. It's important throughout life. As I said at the beginning, one of the things I really want you to remember is that if you play, your well-being, you'll be more resilient, less stressed, or at least be able to deal with stress better. It won't bring you down as much, and it's great to laugh. Okay, there's a spectrum of feelings that are, that indicate that your play circuits are activating and bringing you good stuff. So at the high end, it's joy. Laughter is an indication of joy, especially a good hearty laugh. When you're engaged in something, whether playing the guitar, petting a dog, or in a great novel that you love, or collecting coins, working with your own with a collection of whatever you like, whatever deeply engages you, that's really good for you, and it's play. When your actions, where you get to complete something, you feel complete. You feel like you've really done something, or you're doing something you want to just keep doing. And connecting to others, a fancy term for connecting to others is attuning or attunement. Um, so that's kind of a range of what play is, the feelings that come with play. They're not all, ecstasy and joy. There can be some very just comforting, satisfying feelings. These people like being together. They like the game of golf. They like being outside. And now I'll show you something that's not play. If golf was playful for this guy, he wouldn't be angry that he ended up in the rough. He would just take it in stride. He'd um, he'd laugh about it, or just give up and drop another ball on the fairway. So this guy's embarrassed or angry or something. It's not playful for him. Maybe he shouldn't be playing golf. This guy's totally engaged. He's interested in some aspect of the coins he's got. Who knows what's going on or what the cognitive part of this is, but clearly he's enjoying it. And these are all play. This is this person is relaxing. She's totally engaged. She's forgotten about what other things she could do, and she's just totally engaged. That's play. It's really good for you. Um, all right, so this is the first kid. What's going on here is this dad is just letting his kid lead. His kid wants to dress him up like a king or something, and he's just letting it happen and enjoying it. And that's the best thing you can do with your kids or your grandkids is to support what they want to do. Don't try to direct them to go on the swing with you if they're trying to move a truck or play with their truck on the grass. If they want to play with their truck on the grass, get down and play with them with the truck. Don't try to get them to go on the swing with you because that's what you want. The best thing you can do is let your kids lead or your grandkids because they're in a play state, and fostering that play state is the best thing that can happen for them. This person's in a very satisfied state. She's both getting her, working on her balance and reading the newspaper. This is playful for her. Here's a doctor doing her work, and she's having fun doing it, and she's reducing the boy's anxiety by being playful. So all of this stuff is play, and it's all great stuff for you. This kid is totally engaged. He's he's not sure what he's doing, but he's following his intuition. He's following his innate interests and figuring things out. This we call this object play. I'll go through some other types of play in just a minute or two. Here's a very clearly playful situation. It would be very easy to not do this. Give it a try. You'll feel better for it, and you can do it, socially, or you can do it alone. This these kids are totally engaged and having fun and learning things. If not, they're learning to be in rhythm together. They're learning to work out. Somebody had to uh, kind of lead and say, "Let's play Ring Around the Rosie," or right, and the others went along. They all want to be together. This is an example of what we call mixed age play. When you've got an older and a younger child, they both benefit a lot. The younger child learns from the older child, and the older child starts to get an appreciation for that they have something to offer. And they also learn patience from it, particularly if they've seen that in their environment. This is Peter Gray, who is one of the world renowned play expert, and this is the one of the ways he plays. Um, this gets a little heavy. Let me see if I can keep it simple. So the brain changes from child to adult. Remember, I said that the cortex isn't particularly programmed. All the neurons are there, but they're not connected when you're a kid. So this is dominant in children. That is the pre-wired emotions, those play that area where the play is, and other emotions. I'll talk about the other emotions in a little while. And so the reason kids can play for so long and so easily is they don't have a lot of learned behaviors. That's the stuff that's in the cortex. They don't have a lot of those learned behaviors. They are driven by their emotional circuits, and they don't have a lot of emotional controls. Over time, they build more emotional controls so they don't, have um, a fit, or they don't get upset, or but they'll always, up until 10 or 12, they can very, very easily get into a play state. I remember noticing it very clearly with my kids. I'd bring them to visit relatives, and they would get along with the relatives' kids until they got to about age 11 or 12. And after that, it started getting, well, I like this one, but not that one. But years before that, they played with everybody. Now, with adults, what's dominant is up here. It's the cognitive stuff. And what's down here, the play, the primal pre-wired emotions, they're they get suppressed, they get filtered, and that's why adults have a much harder time playing than kids do. This is another view of the brain, because it's so important. This whole message about the brain is critical. So environmental stimulus stimulates something down here. You have It triggers that primal emotion, and then that generates behaviors that are, motor based, moving, like in dancing, language, talking with your friends, um, and clearly visual is part of it. These are a very famous within the scientific community. Um, Researcher Jaak Panksepp identified these 7 emotional systems. Uh, he named them with all caps to indicate that these are circuits in the brain. They're sets of neurons. But these are the feelings, the instinctual feelings that come out from them. And and you can recognize them. The green ones are positive feelings. The gray ones are generally negative. You typically avoid those. But the point is, the play is one of those basic primal feelings that have been there. It's been there. They've evolved over millions of years. Every mammal has these all of these emotional systems. Reptiles don't have all of them. This is an interesting story. So this is took place in some place in Canada. I don't remember the specifics, but it was a time of year when the polar bears were just coming out of hibernation, and so the bears were very hungry. And here's this team of sled dogs, and it, the people watching this, the photographer and others, thought that those dogs were going to be this bear's lunch. But it turned out dogs were wagging their tail, and their eyes were looked soft, and somehow there was a signal to the bear that the dogs wanted to play, and that's what they did. They were not the bear's lunch. So in this case, you've got a predator like the bear that's got enormous power, much stronger than the dog, but that instinct to um, to get food was overcome by the instinct to play, and this went on for some period of time. There are a bunch of types of there. We've categorized play. Researchers have categorized types of play. This is a very basic, the sort of, we call this the grounding base of play, when a mom and the baby, or dad and the baby, are doing the cuckoo, and the that verbal interchange of smiling and cooing with the baby. That's creating a connection, a sense of safety, a sense of trust, that is what Dr. Brown calls the grounding base of play. And then this continues throughout life, if it happened at this early stage. So here's attunement at an older age. That little girl is about 4 years old, and the guy is her granddad, and he actually invented that swing where you can swing together, and you get much more connected when you're attuned and moving. It just encompasses a lot more of your brain. And this is attunement too. This is where you're old friends. You've got a lot of memories together, and you're just thrilled to see her. Okay, so play is critical for children. First of all, independent play or free play where the kid gets to decide and is just following his or her instinct. That's happiness for every kid. They're learning. Independent play is learning. When you've got an adult directed activity, it's not independent play, whether that's in school, in a classroom, or on a soccer field or with a tutor. There's more and more children or parents are having their kids self-direct their own education, because when a kid chooses what he wants to learn, he learns it better. There's this concept called locus of control, which is if a kid can choose what he wants to do and do it, he feels much more secure and confident, and that's an important aspect of personality, of future stability of personality. How are we doing on time, Chuck?
It's 11:42.
Okay, let me run through. So I just showed. Let's see what I just showed. Um, uh, oh, actually, I didn't show that, did I? Just a second. So here are some types of play. I'm now on the Institute's website. So there's body and movement play. There's object play and kids, and these are all kids things. I'll show you some adult things in a minute. These are all different ways the kids get turned on to play. That their play circuits get activated. Some kids get very activated with moving. Some kids have no interest in it. Some kids get very activated with objects. Some kids have no interest in it. Imaginative play. This kid is whatever he is, Superboy or something. Social play, connecting with other kids. Rough and tumble play can be really important. One of the unfortunate things is that parents and teachers, when they see preschool teachers, when they see this happening, they think it's aggressive or it's bad. It's if the kids are smiling, it's good. Storytelling and narrative play. This little girl, this is Dr. Brown's daughter, about 40 years ago, and she's making up a story. Anyway, so those are all different types of play. And now I'm going to show you some more adult stuff. So these are play personalities. As we grow, we develop um, more of a personality around the types of things that are playful for us. So a collector, somebody who collects coins. We show here Jay Leno, who collects cars. He just loves it. He gets a lot of joy out of fixing and collecting and fixing cars. This guy's he's a competitor. This is Tom Brady. Uh, Gets very excited when he's competing, and that's play for him. Being a creative person or an artist is somebody most of you probably recognize from Silicon Valley. Steve Jobs was a phenomenal creator. A director, somebody who likes to run things, organize things, bring people together. Oprah Winfrey, obviously. This is kind of a unique one. Explorer, somebody who likes to learn new things, explore. We put this in on the site because Dr. Brown knew Jonas Salk. This is Jonas Salk, who invented the polio vaccine. He understood, Stewart said, that Salk could explore viruses the way a map maker understands the coasts or the contours of continents. A joker, somebody who's likes to lighten things up. That's all. These are play personalities. Kinesthete is somebody who likes to move, an adult who likes to move. This person was the choreographer for Cats, and Steven Spielberg, a storyteller. Some people like to still tell stories. That's playful for them. So these are all different ways that play manifests, and they vary by person. Um, I'm going to wrap this up with something I think is pretty powerful, and it's still very early for understanding it. I'm going to show you two short clips from senior center. These are elderly care facilities. This woman is going to, well, let me just play it. If the sound, can you hear that?
No,
Chuck,
not just the subtitles.
okay, so I gotta do it. I need to make a change here. There is music, audio setting. Come on, where is it? Should have done this earlier. Here we go, live performance audio. All right, I think you'll be able to hear it better. Let me take these off.
It's not loud enough. Yeah, all we're getting are the subtitles. Tony, we can't hear you now either.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. And just give me some nods as to whether you hear or don't hear this. To be in that number, I went to say, wow.
Oh, he's singing when the saints go by, marching by. And it takes me back to my school days.
I would like to hit the number.
Mama told us not to go listen to him. We would sneak off at night, bring back pictures from the dance. And I worked in Kings County 9 years, the E building in Kings County. My birthday, November 20th, 19. I was in the wartime. I was working at Fort Jackson. And my...
So the point, without carrying this on a whole lot, the point here is that the music triggers this person's play circuits, and because they're way down in the older parts of your brain, they overcome the dementia and Alzheimer's, which is in the cortex. So a way that to bring people who are cognitively impaired and have dementia, to have them to some extent come back to life, can be with music that's important to them. We've also seen it with golfing. Somebody who loved golf, we give them a putter and a golf ball, and they to some extent come back to life. It's pretty amazing, and it's a very early area of understanding of research. Uh, but I bring this up, and if you compare that, and if you think about that along with the polar bear stuff, it gives you a sense of how strong these play circuits are. So let me go back to this. Why is that so large? Let's see. I don't know why it's so large, but see if I can. All right. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm just going to come back. So let's talk about any of this.
Yeah, and Erica can make it possible for people to ask questions. I had a question for you, Tony. You know, the one of the big differences from when we were growing up, when play was generally with either with other people or animals. Today's kids are growing up with play being with a device, with a computer, with a phone. Has there been much study of the difference that that makes in the way play influences the development of the brain?
Absolutely. There's the best toys are passive toys, things that are only that come to life when the kid does something with it.
Mhm.
But some, like blocks or a truck, and not a truck that drives by itself,
Right.
a truck, something that he's got to push or put the pieces together. um, Legos, erector sets, anything where the kid can apply their own thinking to it is far, far better, and really develops their uh, all kinds of skills.
Yeah.
There's a number of stories I can tell, but yeah,
Yet these
definitely.
game designers have fine-tuned the science of grabbing your attention and hanging on to your attention.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's a very different kind of model of play, it seems like, from what you're talking about.
Yeah, it is. Now, video games, there's a lot of research with video games, and they're not terrible. They're not bad. They actually, with older kids, but with younger kids, you really need to let them sort of figure out what they want to do versus watching cartoons or something. I mean, I watched cartoons, but only on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, yeah.
um, and my dad used to bring me down to his workshop, and I would play with things endlessly there, and that was pretty uh, well. It gave me kind of an object oriented. I'm very much an object player. I love gadgets. So
Okay, are there any questions from the audience? You can use the raise hand function. I believe you're able to unmute yourself. Yeah, Bob Upshaw.
Yeah, Tony, really nice presentation, and thank you very much for putting it together. And it was
sure.
put together until you had the difficulties at the end. And I like the way that you slanted it a little bit towards seniors, because we do often think of play in terms of kids, and
Right.
I think the appropriate emphasis. I'm wondering if you consider sexual activity to be play.
Yeah, well, it depends on how it happens. Uh if it's certainly if it's not forced.
Yes, right, right.
Uh, right,
It certainly,
it has to be natural. I mean, think of the attunement stuff I was showing. Where you have the two friends that came together, and if you're connecting and attuned to each other, then that's playful.
Yeah, and it seems like the dancing is another good example of that. You know, people
Absolutely.
just enjoying that, and sexual doesn't have to be intercourse. It can just be a playful sexual activity that you involved in. Yes,
Absolutely. Right.
and
And
and,
you know,
and
and
I
dancing is one end of that spectrum, right?
yes, and I think one of the challenges for us, because of that inverted pyramid that you showed, is getting ourselves into the place where we're doing more playful things as seniors. And I think
Right.
it's a real challenge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It is because we've built up a lot of filters and a lot of um uh, well, filters. You know, we've repressed a lot. You know, culture, we've learned so much, or we've been enculturated that, you know, you don't do certain things. And, you know, it's one of the reasons I have trouble with the word play is because it's it's so we're so enculturated with that as a kid's thing, and it's a waste of time when in reality, you're most productive when you're playful.
Thank you very
Don,
much for your talk.
Donald,
Sure.
question?
Did you call on me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I want to throw in a slightly, thank you very much. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did, and a lot of stuff's going to help me pass on maybe to children and grandchildren and so on, so on. But one thing and so I'm going to give a criticism, but I hope it doesn't diminish my overall happiness at everything I've learned here. The interpretation, for example, of the golfer and other statements are very upper class. I'll give you an illustration. For most people involved in sports and many other activities, getting angry and upset every once in a while is part of the fun. And particularly for people whose place in life doesn't allow them to express their anger about things very much without endangering their job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
Being able to really blow up, you know, when you hit a tennis ball wrong, or when you uh, accidentally deal an extra card or throw away the wrong card in poker or something of that sort. That's part of the fun. It's almost enabling you to use part of your brain and your feelings and so on that you're inhibited and prevented from using otherwise. So that's
That's
just wanted to
venting.
throw
You're,
that.
I think what you're describing is venting, right? You vent some feelings that have built up over time, and that relieves that some of the pressure of them.
That's a good point. Yeah, yeah. And I was a caddy for 4 years, and I put myself through my family paid expenses by playing at the Key Club. That's poker. They probably aren't there anymore in Oakland. So I'm somewhat familiar with this more than perhaps others.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Let me show you a couple of books that are, well, first of all, you can go to our website. Hold on. Oh, I got to share screen again. Sorry. Hold on. Let's see. So this is our website that, you know, it might be easier to remember the whole name, National Institute for Play, or you can just go to nifplay.org. And then here are two really good books. This is the Play, How It Shapes the Brain, Opens the Imagination, Invigorates the Soul, is Stewart's book, Dr. Brown. And Free to Learn is a really good book if you want to get learn more about it for your grandkids. What else? I think that's it. Yeah, I don't know how many people noticed, but last August the cover story on the Newsweek cover story was on play, and there's beginning to be more and more articles in the mainstream press about play as more and more of it comes to more and more of the research comes out. But the research is, nobody reads academic articles.
Yeah, I was just wondering if what does the National Institute do to try to influence the direction of play that is showing up? I mean, does it play? Is it just a research organization, or is it
No,
active?
we're actually probably more of a journalist and education organization, right? We're really just starting to expand, with a web presence. I'd really encourage everybody to go to the site. Let me share one more time.
I could see tremendous opportunities to influence teachers, educators.
Yes. Yep.
Changing classroom behavior, would have a tremendous payback, it would seem to me.
Yep. No. Well, here, well, getting there one of these days. If you go to the front page of the site, we've just issued a new report. God dang. Here we go. That should get it. So we just published a report that overviews a lot of the science. And so if you just go to the front page of the site and click this, get the report, give us your email address, and tell us just answer one question, and you can download this report, which has got a lot of references. It's all science based. But it's in easy to read form, and if you want to get into the science, the footnotes are there and a bit with the bibliography. So
How,
um,
how, how do teacher organizations react to your whole argument about there ought to be more play in the classroom and less didactic transmission of learning? How do teachers organizations react to
the earlier preschool and kindergarten teachers really understand it
that?
totally.
Yeah, I could understand that.
The other teacher, as you get into later grades, um, their perspective is it varies. Obviously, there's a distribution of perspectives, but um, even they feel so much pressure to teach to exams,
Yeah.
to the standardized exams, that what they say they need playful lesson plans. Somebody has to give them to them because they don't have the time to create them. They're doing so much to convey the material so the kids could do well on the exams.
It seems like you're also asking them to give up a good deal of control in the classroom that they're used to having.
Not frankly, I'm not a teacher and I don't have a lot of experience with it, but um, the teachers I've talked to say that when they've learned how to do it, that it works really well. The kids are clearly enjoying it more, but I can't tell you
Yeah,
how you maintain boundaries and control, and
right, right.
I'm not sure how. That's something we want to get more into. We at the institute want to get more into offering materials for teachers, but we're really just beginning. And if anybody wants to make a donation, please go to our donation page.
Okay. Any other questions?
I didn't get here early, and maybe you already described this, but how did you get involved in the National Institute for Play?
I met Dr. Brown about 20 years ago when a friend of mine who was on his board of directors said this guy needs a website, and I had been running an internet service in the mid to late 90s, and my kids were young, and I dropped out of corporate life and became a consultant so that I'd have time to be with the kids, and also I could focus on what I did well, which was I have an MBA, so I could translate the business needs into the technology that they need. And anyway, so I helped him build a website to start to convey the play stuff. And there's kind of a funny story there where when I first met him, he handed me a stack of academic papers and he said, "Put all these on the website." And I had looked through them and I thought, there's no way anybody's going to read this stuff. It's so dense. So most of my work was just literally interviewing him and sort of getting chunking and distilling all of the material that was in that stack of papers into stuff that people could read.
Good.
Anyway, I'm sorry. So that was 20 years ago. And my last 10 years of my career, I worked at Stanford in IT. And when that started becoming less and less fun, I started talking to Dr. Brown more and basically sort of engaged in what became a graduate program for me, one-on-one, where he was kind of a teacher mentor. And eventually I just retired from Stanford, and I'm doing this full time now, and or pretty much full time, but it's a pro bono position.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Tony. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to you influencing village activities with your insights into how to make it more playful. So
Great, thanks a lot, Chuck. Thank you, everybody. And I think this was recorded.
yes,
Well, it is recorded. Okay.
So people will be able to view it later on.
Yeah, go check out our site. There's a lot there that should be very readable. Thanks for listening.